What up, what's happening, everybody? My name is Charles Blades, and this is The Hot Take. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about third-party conferences and whether they have a place in E3 in its current state. So, without further much ado, let's get to it. It's over. Well, not really. But the public-facing part of E3, the publisher press briefings, showcases, or whatever they're calling them nowadays, has officially been done and away with. While the internet is out assigning letter grades to each event based on what the company shows, it's hard to ignore the fact that when we talk about third-party publisher conferences in this context, we are grading on a curve. EA let everything off by showing 8 games in total. 3, albeit solid-looking sports titles, DLC for their shooter from last year, a new Need for Speed game, a Prison Break spin-off co-op game by the developers of Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, a literal logo for BioWare's new Anthem IP, and a 30-minute faux esports match of Star Wars Battlefront 2. Bethesda wasn't too dissimilar either, debuting 3 new games in Dishonored, Death of the Outsider, The Evil Within 2, Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, after 20 minutes of VR expansions and quality of life improvements to their existing series along the way, with the fact that you can now play as Link in Skyrim on Switch. Finally, Ubisoft, who most certainly had the best showing of all the third-party developers, but still found its showcase dragging in a number of predictably dull areas. Too much time being spent on people talking in vague, meaningless sentiments about the time they spent on a game that I haven't even been shown enough of yet. The biggest surprise at the show, Beyond Good and Evil 2, was a jaw-dropping moment, until the public thought about the fact that anything resembling that CG trailer isn't coming out until next decade. My main takeaway from these 3 conferences, and the thing they have all in common, is that they don't have enough firepower by themselves to carry a show. While it's true each had 2 or 3 big hitters, none had enough substance to carry their time in the spotlight. Between EA and Bethesda, there was never a one more thing moment that allowed either of the publishers' lineups to pop rather than fizzle out to their conclusion. And with Ubisoft, sure, they had Beyond Good and Evil 2, which, again, I'll state, was legitimately a jaw-dropping moment. But the fact that they did this 8 years ago with another CGI trailer leaves me wanting more, especially when it was one up just a day later by Nintendo giving us an announcement of Metroid Prime, which will almost undoubtedly be out sooner. And the bad looks don't stop there. Compare the third parties to the non-stop full court press of game after game announcement that came in Microsoft's showcase. Phil Spencer started off his show by saying they had 32 games to show off. And while 15 of them in a sizzle reel isn't the best way to promote a bunch of indie titles, they gave us healthy looks at a little more than a dozen AAA and indie titles, many of which are coming out this year or early next year. And while it's arguable that the weakest press conference, Sony, had some problems in terms of showing games off that were already announced last year, their showcase was still filled with games, and no PR people taking the stage to bog it down with overly romantic talks about what the game's development was like. All killer, no filler is the basic summation of the first-party press conferences. While EA was busy padding out their conferences with racist esports stars, Nintendo had everyone fawning over a new Yoshi and Kirby game. And it's not only the first parties showing off more games, it's they're showing more varied games from a number of different genres for a wide array of gamers. Ubisoft's conference, while solid, had only one major AAA game announced, which was already shown off at Microsoft's conference, that didn't include some sort of multiplayer mode. Contrast that with Sony, who showed Destiny and Call of Duty right alongside Detroit and Days Gone and Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. While it's not necessarily a bad thing to have a number of similar type games, it doesn't make for an award-winning performance by any means. Yes, Bethesda did do a great job in presentation and confidently asserting that everything they showed off will be coming out this year, but they still spent 20 minutes after midnight on the East Coast talking about old games. They then proceeded to show a game that will literally never die. Seriously, Todd Howard, kill Skyrim. It's been out for 6 years. They showed it at 4 separate press conferences at some point. When you look at the mix of what makes a good E3 conference, there are 3 things to consider: presentation, release date announcements, and new game announcements with extra style points for surprises. While it could be debated who won between the 3 first parties, probably Nintendo, or who lost, probably Sony, they were head and shoulders better than any of the third-party conferences. And if that's the case, why do them at all? Why be compared to first-party platform holders who have indefinitely more resources than you could ever possess? It's a losing battle, and it's one that doesn't do anything but make you look worse in comparison. Yeah, so that's what I think. Are third-party conferences a thing in the past? Who knows? That's up for you to decide. Leave your comments down below, like, subscribe, share, all that YouTube stuff, and we'll see you next week for more Hot Take.